Hey, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal to the Night. This is going to be a good one, Dave. The day after Roswell, the definitive show with Art Bell, Philip J. Corso.
I thought we were going to talk about the 49ers.
Oh, jeez, no.
Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
Okay, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Into the Night. Remembering Art Bell, number 17. And tonight we are going to hit Roswell, technically, but this show is all about Philip J. Corso and the back engineering of things that we. What are you laughing about? What's going on, Dave?
We're going to hit Roswell like a flying saucer.
It's going to crash the show. No, listen, we're going to be talking UFO crashes. We're going to talk Philip J. Corso and everything he found, the file cabinet he got from General Arthur Trudeau. And this episode, which aired 7/23 of 1997, okay. And what makes this really, really important is that Philip J. Corso is 82 years old here. And he promised his boss back in the day, General Arthur Trudeau, that he would to please wait until he passes on before any of this is discussed, which lends credence and makes it just a bit more factual. None other than also the facts that, the history and the fact checking and everything else behind this. But let me say hi to everybody. Sweet Indigo, Edward Stewart, Connie Clary, what's going on? Harry Scott is here. WWM. Andrea. Embrace Smith, what is going on? When was last time? Raj, hey, what's going on, Raj? Good to see you. When was the last time we did an Art Bell? Dave?
About a month ago.
About a month ago. Okay, so yeah, about once a month we get this in. Good to see you and welcome, Embry. We do this, like Dave said, once a month. I'm a little worked up here because I'm excited to talk about this. I mean, this is, hey, Lizzie, good to see you.
August.
As always, thumbs up. Please check the links below. And let's get started. Why do we do this, Dave? Go ahead.
First of all, I'm just going to take us back in time to August 11th of this year. We did Skinwalker Ranch. That was our last Art Bell. That was a fantastic episode, if I do say so myself.
Loved it, yes.
Yeah, it got a lot of people interested and listening and watching, so thank you all. We do this about once a month because Art Bell is so important to us. In fact, every time I listen to one of these shows, it's always great to hear Art's voice again. Art Bell is a radio talk show host that started in the 1990s, went all the way to about 2015. But this is, again, one of the episodes that's in the glory years of about mid-90s to late 90s. As Dino said, 1997 is when this aired. And Dino and I are both big fans of Art Bell. He is just kind of an icon, if you will, of not only radio, but also the paranormal. And unfortunately, life cut short too quick. And fun fact, both Dino and I got a chance to talk to him before his passing. So I always think that's really cool. And this guy also had the Talking Art Bell podcast.
Yes. How many years ago? Maybe 7, I think, something like that. Long time ago. And there will be news coming up real soon about a Monday through Thursday Paranormal Into the Night show that I am working on putting together with guests in kind of a casual paranormal format. So I got to bring that back. I really do. Kathy is in the chat. Hello, Kathy. DC, definitely good to see you. And welcome to the channel. Chris W, what's going on? Good to see you, Chris W. Listen.
And you had mentioned, this was brought out into the open after Trudeau died.
Yeah.
Trudeau died in 1994. And so we're very lucky to have this little bit of a window. I mean, what have happened if Philip J. Corso had died first? He never would have been able to talk about this. But Trudeau dies in 1994. Corso writes this book day after Roswell. And this episode, I think, is also really important because it's within a year of this guy's death. Natural death? I don't know. But, you know, he is in his 80s and everything. But
82, and I think it's a natural death. I mean, everything that they allowed him to get out into the open and talk about was just like, you know, unbelievable, you know, to the point of like people they listen to this and they go, you know, I don't believe this, but listen, he goes back to 1947. He's in the military. He starts off his career in military officer training and comes out as, I think, a sergeant or a lieutenant. I'm not sure which one, Dave, if you wrote that down, it doesn't matter.
Well, when you see this guy's resume, it's impressive.
And that's exactly what I was getting to. He was in the intelligence, military intelligence all throughout his career. He was in the White House. He served under Eisenhower. You know, the list just
under MacArthur in Operation Paperclip.
Yeah, well, yes. And Operation Paperclip is what? Operation Paperclip is after World War II. What did our country go and do? We went and got all the German scientists that we could to come to America and work with our military, and which was a good thing. I mean, let's get them out of there and bring them here and do some, research. But yeah, Operation Paperclip, very well known. General Arthur Trudeau also very well known, and he's got a paper trail as long as whatever. He was in military intelligence for most of his life too. And I just think, you know, how can you deny some of these people who do come out of the woodwork and start talking, who have the resume? I mean, listen, Philip J. Corso was there when Roswell happened. He
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
and you know, this is one of the things that kind of struck me when I was listening to this program, is that, you know, we talk a lot about Bob Lazar, and that, you know, there's a lot of questions about Bob Lazar's history, his schooling, his past. Yet with Roswell, I don't hear that with Philip J. Corso. You know, it's to me a ton more believable
because he's got a paper trail. He was in the military. You know, he served under Eisenhower and all these other things. He was in. He looked for foreign material. He was part of the National Security Council, looking for foreign material. Former intelligence officer, and it's the intelligence gathering that he did of foreign material, whether it be from a foreign country or from something that derived from an alien crashed craft, or, you know, something along those lines. And you know, I just think that's what makes this so interesting, and it spans all of these years. And then when he got that file cabinet, with all of that back engineered material, which I can't wait till we get in and talk about. And I can't wait to talk about, Dave, is also the aliens that were, I mean, because he gets the autopsy report in this filing cabinet. It's there.
Yeah.
And he goes in depth on talking about what they looked like and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, go ahead, Dave. I mean, we'll start somewhere, and then we'll start going and lead up.
Just because Raj has mentioned me a couple times. Hello, everything's great in education. My students are fine. They don't have too much homework. They're doing really great. It's only week 3, maybe going into week 4 this week. So about a quarter of the way through this semester right now. Awesome. One of the things that I did want to touch on is, do you think it really was a file cabinet that they wheeled in? I think that is just the visual of that, and just dropping it off, and just like, is it one of those 4 like column file cabinets? What exactly is that?
Yeah. What did you say? Submit, obey. How are you doing? Submit, obey. I mean, Yibo Timbus. Thank you. we are talking about remembering Art Bell in the actual show. And yes, when he actually did talk about bringing in the filing cabinet, in my mind, I pictured like Arthur Trudeau, like wheeling in this like filing cabinet with like, that stands just, one tall with maybe four
Yeah.
drawers and it's on wheels. And I don't know, he just, didn't he say, he said he brung in a filing cabinet.
That was his words.
So I had to have been wheeled in. That's what I picture in my head. And I even got a color. It's white in my head.
Interesting. Mine is silver.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
with the little lock thing on top. Like, these are some of the most important secrets in the universe. And it's just like, boop, they're locked.
And it's being wheeled around, right?
And then it's like, do you have like, like it must be like a Christmas present, right? I mean, do you open it up? It's like, are there in Ziploc bags? Because they talk about all these things. I had written down, he talked about a shoebox. There's wires in here. There's pieces of metal, there's paper, there's all sorts of really cool things. And he only talked about the top file cabinet drawer. What about the other three?
Well, you know what? You got to read the book too. I mean, but he really didn't get into like you said, the other drawers and stuff like that, which would have been cool. And if he did subsequent interviews, maybe that might have happened. But I think they just really focused on the Roswell incident because that's been the bane of all of our like intrigue when it comes to UFOs, right? Because that technically is where the lore begins for us when it comes to a big UFO crash. But what I think is incredible, Dave, is the fact that, Philip J. Corso, this spans many decades. And General Arthur Trudeau, who, again, becomes his boss and hands him pushes in the filing cabinet around 1961, I do believe he says he gave it to him. By this point, Philip J. Corso had become so ingrained in all of the intelligence around the world that he was looked up to by General Trudeau. And thus, it makes this a slippery slope because, like he said in the show, when he's talking to Art Bell, there are no papers to be signed, agreements that if you say anything, you're dead, basically.
Right.
This is a secret given by General Arthur Trudeau himself to Philip J. Corso in secret because he trusts him to the point of giving him this. And he just says, like a handshake almost.
Yeah. And I think he fulfilled that trust as well.
Yes.
I mean, and we have the proof of that in the 1990s. One thing that Corso said was that not only was Roswell hit by one of those UFOs, he says that was like the second or third crash in Roswell.
Oh, well, listen.
It was so kind of fun to think about that, like there's this center point where it's just like you want to miss that curve because Roswell is like the dead man's curve for UFOs.
Well, yeah, I think it's interesting that he actually mentions, and when we talk about the filing cabinet, he also got this like the reports that went along with the material. Like he had the autopsy report and other reports that went along with the Roswell crash. So whether these were copies put in a folder for him along with these, it still makes it very interesting. So basically, he has firsthand knowledge. But at the time in 1947, listen, I know Edward Stewart talked about Jesse Marcel, but this is all going to be Philip Corso. And what ended up happening was he was, I think, very close to the Roswell crash where he was I forget where he was stationed at the time, but he was very nearby. And the actual cargo,
he was at Fort Riley, Kansas.
Okay, is that where he was during 1947?
When I'm sorry, this is where he saw the 5 boxes or caskets.
Okay, so yes, this is where he was located. So you are correct, Dave. I find that funny that he was there when the cargo from the Roswell crash actually came through, and the bodies were there in crates in liquid, He had no idea what it was, but he pulls over the tarp to see the body of an alien that was from the Roswell crash, which I thought just was interesting. And he, immediately saw it, and he's like, whoa, okay, and then just covered it up and went back out again. But lots of good information there. Hey, Tony, what's going on? Bobby
Can I
Lee.
go ahead and give the description that he listed?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right, so he's at Fort Riley, Kansas. He is the security and post-duty officer that night. And he calls this quote unquote cargo. And he thought it might be young children. And when he opened up and saw inside, he said this was no doubt extraterrestrial, saying that there were slanted eyes, no nose, no mouth, no ears, gray in color, large head, skinny arms, skinny legs, under 5 feet, and floating in liquid.
And he also talks about later on when he talks about the reports in the filing cabinet of the autopsy and the actual UFO itself, that these aliens and also under 5 feet tall, just like your typical gray alien, right, is what it was. And he talks about during the crash they found out that basically there's no food, there's no refrigeration on this UFO, there's no water of any kind. He basically says, and I think throughout the decades here, a lot of people have come to the same conclusion, that they're they're clones. They're clones that are made to be able to travel in this flying saucer. And again, I will always say UFO. I am never going to say UAP. I don't know what's going on when we have to change a word like that. But anyways, it doesn't matter. It's right, something that gets under my skin. Go on, Dave.
But he, again, no sex organs, no digestive system.
Yes.
As I mentioned, no water. And that these individuals were part of the craft, part of the navigation system. And I thought that was quite a very interesting idea, something I hadn't thought of before. It wasn't just like these people are piloting, they are right, part of the ship itself.
Well, I think he found out too. And hello to Emily, Ezra, the Buzz, CJC. What is going on, the Buzz? Bob, I said all that. Okay. I think what they came down to was the craft was, navigated. They were part of the navigation system. Right. And I think we've heard this before, where, there's this kind of instrument panel on board the ship. I think Bob Lazar may have talked about this, where, a hand can go on. And I think these alien clones, which became part of the ship, and they had 4 lobes in their brain. So right, there was some.
One thing too that Corso had said is that he goes, we missed a great opportunity to do more, an anatomy check. The idea of breaking down the DNA. And I don't think we had the knowledge really of DNA quite at that time. Yeah. He goes, these objects basically disintegrated over a period of time to where they literally disappeared. And I do wish that we had more, that he had talked more about the flying object itself, whether it was similar to the tester model, whether it was, as Bob Lazar said, no sharp angles, everything was curved, and it looked like it was basically one solid unit.
Yeah, and I think these clones, the typical alien grays, sit, become part of the navigational system, which he talked about electromagnetism, which we all know life is in general electricity, but this also just brings out a whole mess of other things that's going through my head, because why would they need clones? Okay, I think it comes down to, and over all of these years, I think the year 2024, I think a lot of scientists and people who are into this are really coming to the realization that, I don't think we can technically fly in space, Dave. I know we need gravity to be able to, maybe one day we'll be able to have a craft that could create a gravity to get us to fly through space, but I don't think it's possible. And I think the clones and what we're seeing out there right now is actually showing us that, listen, I don't think they're traveling. Like, they don't shoot up to the sky and take off, especially after the Skinwalker Ranch thing that's going on and all of the factual data that they're bringing in about portals and wormholes. You got Michio Kaku, other theoretical physicists who talk about wormholes and portals that even Einstein bending space and time together to get from one point to the next.
Well, I think also in the 1970s, when you have, and this one's a little bit earlier, 2001: A Space Odyssey, but in the 1970s, you have a lot of TV shows that talk about what it would be like to live in space. And they have these big circular type of space stations that, because of their motion, creates gravity. And that's something that's really important, as you can see with a lot of the people who are in space for even a short period of time. They're brought back to Earth, and they literally have to be carried back out of their capsules.
Brain, muscle atrophy, the bone marrow and bone itself. I mean, everything degrades and starts to break down very quickly, even with some sort of gravity. I mean, listen, if you can't get the amount of gravity that we have here on Earth and spinning, how is a ship going to create that? So there are ways to do this, I believe, maybe. But the thing that makes me say that maybe it isn't possible is this whole, alien gray. I mean, listen, there's reptilians. We've heard of other alien species. The list goes on and on with the Nordics. It goes on and on and on and on and on, the way they look. But how they're getting here is the weird thing. You look back now on a lot of the UFO sightings and stuff like that, you find out that they just disappear. You really never see them just flying off. They may, John Lear talked about them, setting up and parking up in space too, above the planet. But, I think they're going through portals and wormholes to get from place to place. And I think that's why the clones, these alien grays, didn't need food, water, or anything of the sort. They come, they go.
John Lear, that there were mirrors on the underside of their spaceships, so we couldn't see them.
Well, there were giant mirrors. Listen, by no means am I. John Lear came out with this story, and he talked to Art Bell about this too, and he talked to me about this. That giant mirror structures were created to hide the massive amount of UFOs that are parked up above our planet, so that we do not see them. That one's harder for me to swallow. I don't know if I believe it, but listen, when it comes to any of this stuff, as far out as it sounds, how can you either deny or say it's true, unless you experience or you got enough information to back it up, which I think Philip Corso did.
I think he did too. And one thing that I wanted to mention, as you had talked about the grays and everything like that, is that it's interesting to think that they are part, let's say, of the navigation system of this flying craft, yet they are individual sentient beings where they can leave and kind of interact with, normalcy, at least for a short time outside of their ship as well. But as you mentioned, as Corso mentioned, they don't last for a very long time. Any of the ones of the crash survivors, they tend to die very, very quickly. And as you saw in this episode, that, they disintegrated, they disappeared into nothing.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you only have a certain amount of time to, break down the tissue and all that other stuff.
Fish out of water.
Yeah. Without if they have no water, I mean, they are fluid filled. I mean, we've been talked about, even the autopsy told us that, but, a clone, Anyways, we're not here to talk about that. Hey, John Swan, Red, what's going on? Raj, I would talk about my favorite, the science fiction or extraterrestrial movie, but these shows are to remember Art Bell and the actual show itself. So I kind of stick to that. There's so much to get to and to talk about here. I'd have to think about that anyways, but
Now,
nevertheless.
Also had mentioned that the government immediately came out with the story that these were dummies.
Oh, listen, this is the other thing.
By that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you get offended by those types of, oh, it's a weather balloon, it's a dummy. Well, it's.
You say offended. It's not so much the fact of being offended by hearing those things, but I think over the years listen, even that day, the day of Roswell, the Roswell crash, there were so many military people and family in Roswell that were affected and saw this happen and told newspapers, told the press, all kinds of people. They passed on what they saw. You know what I mean? We're not even at 100 years here, but 1947 isn't that far out of reach.
It's not, but it's sad to also think that so many of these people who did encounter this firsthand are no longer here.
Well, but a lot of people have come out and talked about it, like Philip J. Corso, and he had people, and he even talks about in this, some of the people that came up and talked to him that were there at the site. I didn't write down the name, Dave. If you listen to this show in its entirety, anybody listening, you will know that towards the end there, or halfway in the middle, he does talk about a military personnel that were there that actually came up and talked to him later in life. And so I think he said 4 days before the show even aired. Hey, J.B. What's going on?
And I think this was that person that was at Roswell with him.
Yes.
That day.
Yeah. And so having people that have been there over all these years. So you talk about the crash, or not the crash test. I always say crash test dummies, but they're supposedly were. What year was it? Listen,
1947.
No. Well, I know that, Dave. Listen, what year did they come out and talk about the dummies? Is what No, I don't. I'm trying to look.
I have written down July 1947.
It was some years after that they came out and said that. At first, it was a balloon that went up and came down. We all know that when we talk about the Roswell incident. Dang, I wish I wrote that down. But first it was a balloon, then it was dummies that they came out and talked about. It was a 200. You know what? I got it here. June 24th, 1997. So the same year that he came out with the day after Roswell, Philip J. Corso. The Air Force released a 231-page report disclosing that they were dummies at the time. So this is why I said, thank God I wrote it down, because it was during this time that it was dummies that were pushed out of a plane. I think it's so important that they just made themselves look like a fool, is what I think.
Okay.
To come out this many years later and say, oh, well, you know what? We got 231 pages of this report we did on research that we did through the Air Force that proves to us, without a shadow of a doubt, that these were dummies that were pushed out. Listen, I think just made themselves look like a fool. And offended, they think this is the part, Dave. Okay, I'll come right out and say it. People can be told that. Listen, I'm all. When it comes to this kind of stuff, people think it's fairy tales. You know what I mean? And I think that's what gets to me. Is that it's so easy to have like press come out and say, "Listen, this is what it is." Just like the Phoenix Lights. They all made a charade of that. When triangular shaped aircraft, UFOs, were seen all across from the Pacific Northwest all the way down through the Phoenix area. But the fact that they can come out and say it's dummies, and a good proportion of those people will say, you know what? Yeah, that makes sense. If the military is going to come out and say that, then I believe them, which just puts that story at rest for many, many people. How can
For,
stuff like this just be put back and made into folklore? You know what I mean?
yeah, but I think with these incidents, there are so many people who did see them, who did believe them. And it's, like, I mean, when I think about the Phoenix Lights,
Yeah.
the person who called it in was Kurt Russell. He's the first person to, let air traffic control know that there was weird stuff going on when he
Yeah.
was flying, in his plane. I think a lot of people do believe the Roswell incident, and again, so much more than the stories that maybe Bob Lazar would be saying. And
Well,
I think there's such a greater percentage. That's why also this story didn't die away.
but what does it say about the government coming out and saying, hey, it's dummies, or at the time even it was balloons, or I think there were even a couple more things said about this that just didn't fit, and it's just
Yeah,
kind of
but what
ridiculous.
could they say? You know,
They can keep quiet if they really wanted to, but
I would be really, during this time of year, of course, we're scared to death during the Cold War,
yeah.
and we don't want to ever let it leak out that it was,
It's funny you bring that up. Yeah.
it
Well,
was,
no,
I want to think
I,
it was Russia or something like that.
yeah, I guess there's many reasons well, but why 1997? I think we were out of the Cold War then. Why bring up dummies? Why even make a point after all of those years to
True.
say anything about it? But you bring up the Cold War, and he did come out in 1992, Corso, and talk about the secret war that was going on the border of Russia. And the funny thing is, not the funny thing, but the interesting thing is Corso. There was so many places that he worked that makes it seem like you can't say this guy was lying. That's my point. You know what I mean?
Oh, I agree. I mean, I think he, if we asked, like, do you believe this guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not even like 75%. It's like 90%, I think, for me.
Yeah.
This guy is telling the truth, or at least what he thinks, what he knows, he's aware of.
Well, he even brought up the fact, and he worked in intelligence all over the world, like I said, and he talked to many people. Like he says in the filing cabinet, there were at least 12 reports of UFO crashes that he knew
Right.
of.
Yeah.
Okay, so and we knew that Germany, pre-World War II, was working on back engineering craft at the time also.
And the thing is, he talks about how these UFOs are not just endemic to the US. They hit in Russia, they hit in Germany.
Everywhere.
And so, like, kind of every country has a UFO that's crashed there.
Yeah.
And I think also, I'm going to posit that we also have these grays mass produced, cloned, whatever you want to talk about, because there are so many missions going out, so
Yeah.
many test flights, like, oh, let's send out a probe into this area. We're doing the same thing with like Voyager and our ships like that, and we're just way behind the times and in terms of actual knowledge.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Listen, I think we're nowhere near. Listen, I don't know how far civilization will get on this planet. I really don't. But that's another topic altogether, Dave.
Right.
But go ahead. Go ahead.
One more fascinating thing as well with Roswell, and one of the things that's bothered me is how many people were involved. As you had mentioned, there's a lot of military families that really
Yeah.
do know the secrets about what happened, what my relatives saw. But you've also got people like, when I'm writing down these notes when I'm listening to the program,
Yeah.
that this truck that Corso sees, where the caskets are, came from New Mexico, and they were going to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Yes. Yes.
Not only is it, you've got people along the way seeing this happen, you've got people who are driving the vehicles. Do they know what they're hauling? Are they sworn to secrecy? What's
Yeah.
going on with them? Where did they go?
Well, I think you got a couple things here, Dave. I think you got the first thing, like I said at the beginning with Corso, is the relationship between Corso and Trudeau was one that it was almost like a handshake. There were no papers signed to say, you talk about this later in life, which he never did anyways, because it was part of the military, and people, he even said, would think we were kooks, to even talk about this. But eventually he did say it. But then you have the other military personnel who ended up giving, a lot of them giving deathbed confessions, or later in life coming out and talking about, yes, this is what happened. But those are the people who were in the military, who were regular personnel, security, stuff like that, that actually did sign military agreements and non-disclosure. You talk about this, whatever, money taken away, you'll be killed, whatever you want to say. You got those people. I'm sure the truck drivers, they had nothing, they had no idea probably, and if they did, they signed something.
True, maybe not, but I mean, you're looking at, there's one road between New Mexico and Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and they've got to take it on there. I mean, is this a big UFO? Is this something that was smaller? And how far away are you from Wright-Patterson?
About 4 hours away.
Okay, so it's near, but not too near.
Yeah. So much UFO history. It'd be nice if Dan Aykroyd could join in, Yibo. It would be nice to talk to Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd he's kind of like, he's always been into the paranormal, and he had his own sightings. And like Whitley Strieber, which it's different, but they're just two different people who are interested in the paranormal because of things that have happened in their life. I think he would be contemplating the same things that we're discussing right here, right now, if we had him here talking to him. You know what I mean? He was on our Bell show, but yeah.
And he'd be drinking vodka.
And he would be drinking vodka, yeah.
There's a great episode with him on the Joe Rogan podcast, where he talks a lot about his sightings and his interactions with ghosts. He lived in a haunted house, and I think he bought Cass Elliott's house here in Hollywood and sold it to Beverly D'Angelo, who's living in it now.
Oh, yeah. This show's wanting Dino and Dave to review Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The other thing that, hey, Jake, what's going on? Good to see everybody in the chat. Please give a thumbs up if you like. Tell your friends and neighbors about it once a month. Remember an Art Bell. Listen, the other interesting thing I think throughout Corso, Philip J. Corso, and we'll get to the filing cabinet very soon, which, again, when we start talking about that, it makes sense. I've talked about this in the past many times, like, how did we get such big jumps in technology like we did? And we'll talk about that, because none of it makes sense sometimes. How did we go from the 80s to what we had to right now with what we got? You know what I mean? And some tiny little chip, the things that we can put on there. But anyways, Corso also was working at working radar in New Mexico too, and he was getting craft going 2,000-3,000 miles an hour. And when he would go to the higher ups and he'd tell them, they would say, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And it's interesting, Dave, right? I mean, why would they say that? He had a reason why they would say that. They're not a threat.
They're not a threat. Well, it's kind of like, we can't do anything.
I think it's more so that, or listen, we know what they are. And I think we heard other people over the years talk about this too. We know what they are, but there's nothing we could do about it. Every time we get aircraft out there to follow, they either disappear or take off super quick. There's nothing we can do about it.
Even George Knapp says at a certain time, these UFOs, when they were followed or attacked by our people, get shot down, and they become a hostile type of, I don't want to say a race, but if you're being attacked, you're going to attack back.
Well, you know what, you bring that up too, and listen, I'm trying not to be all over the place here. Getting back to,
I think that boat's left the port.
Yeah, I know.
We're
always
halfway through the show, and it's just like we haven't even touched on so many of the elements of this program.
Well, we will
make Art Bell's shows so wonderful, and a lot of times that's why he has these repeat guests, because they don't get as much out as they really want to. They have so much fun just talking about the topic.
Does anyone think we will invent hyperspace one day? Okay, Nathan. Well, this was just the point that I was trying to make a little bit ago when I was talking about, I don't think we can see. That's a tough question. Everything I see points to us not being able to travel. Like, you can throw out hyperspace or the speed of light. Even at the speed of light, which is technically supposed to be the fastest we can go, right, Dave? I mean, it would take forever to get somewhere.
Yeah.
I think what's going on, okay, this is my opinion.
I'm ready. Should I take notes?
Well, no,
I think we're recording. It's okay.
I think it's pretty simple. I mean, I think enough information for me has come out that we're dealing in, and again, we can go back to theoretical physicists like Michio Kaku and talking about the wormholes or portals, certain places on the earth that have these portals or energies. And again, I go to Skinwalker Ranch, and talk about, they've used LiDAR and over all kinds of imaging and techniques there's this void in this cone shape, like a black hole right in the middle. And it's just very odd and weird, something I am going to discuss on one of the upcoming Paranormal Into the Night shows once I get that started. But I don't think we can travel through space, Dave. I think we get from point A to B through these portals or these wormholes, whether we have to build the vessel or Stargate, if you will, something to get us there. I think that is what is going to be important. I think the means of the ship isn't as important as getting to the point of being able to work a portal or a wormhole. And this is something we leave to the scientists, and maybe one day we can do that. And we are learning a lot of stuff about this.
I need to stop for just a moment.
Go ahead.
Because Bobby Lee made an interesting point in the chat.
Okay.
He said, quote, I'm still on the fence with Roswell.
Huh. But I love the conversation. Bobby Lee.
And that's fine.
Yeah,
but
it's fine.
I think that Roswell is one of the few things where I would say, put a check mark.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely happened.
Yeah, no, but listen, Bobby Lee, I think you're a skeptic. I think you're enjoying the conversation. I think you love the paranormal. I can tell. I feel that you love the paranormal. But Bobby Lee, I think you have to go through listen, if we just go with what Philip J. Corso has to say and Arthur Trudeau on the Roswell incident and the bodies, and how do you then you just go in that Marcel, and then all the deathbed confessions, look it up, Roswell deathbed confessions, family members who came out and say it, all of the info. This just stacks up to being one that you can't deny, unless you're so skeptical and you just really don't want to believe that. And there are people who just don't want to believe, hey, Mars Deadwood, what's going on? What's going on, Dave? You're looking intent at some of these things. What's going on?
No, it's okay. I just had to do something.
Okay, reading. Let's see. What do you got to say, Mars Deadwood? Sing upon the evening of which all men and women had started their meetings, so they're peaking in the shorter entry. Okay. So yeah, no, let's just say, even if you're skeptical, it's tough to deny all of the things that have come out and the people who have come out and said they have seen what they've seen. And listen, I think there's I'm moving on from that because I think the case rests, Your Honor, right? Am I wrong?
Absolutely. And I now think we need Kurt Russell on our program.
Yeah, right. That's going to happen.
I'm two people away. I'm 2 people away from him.
I've caught some orbs on photos, which I could not see with my eyes. Usually I can see them, but can't document them. Chris W. Interesting.
And I think Ed had also mentioned the orbs that he interacted with.
Okay. That crazy multicolored orb I've been seeing around my 12:30 to 2:30 a.m. is the coolest thing I've seen through the binoculars. Saw it again last night for about 10 seconds since June. Seen about 8 times. Down in the Florida area, Edward Stewart. Yes. There's I'm not sure exactly where you're at, but there is this phenomenon where there's an orb type form. And if you were to get a closer look, I don't know how good you're getting, but through the binoculars, it's awesome and sparkles like crazy. Yes, if you get binoculars or even look through a telescope or something that really brings the object in closer, you notice that the orb that you're seeing turns into this almost electrical, multicolored type, squiggly type thing. It's hard to describe, but we've encountered this over and over and over again on my team. I mean, go ahead, Dave.
Swamp gas.
Swamp.
No, in serious though.
Ball of lightning. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Fairy orbs.
Talk about Project Horizon when we get a chance.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Corso mentions this, and it is about putting a base on the moon, and it was something I had not heard of before in terms of its name.
Yeah.
But this is something that took place in the 1960s.
Yes.
And it's, the way it was promoted, like many things are, through propaganda, that we want to beat the Russians to it. However, he said that it was more like we wanted to beat the ETs to do it.
They want to defend themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was kind of like a just in case type of thing.
Well, and Philip J. Corso kept saying that was our motto. Just in case was their motto. Just in case. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Even in the 1950s, they were talking about plans to put a base on the moon, and technically to fend off who they thought were a threat. And it's funny too, Dave. I'm sure you remember Philip J. Corso in this show talking about it, that he goes, and this is what I was a little baffled with. He said that they definitely were our enemies. Okay. And there's reasons why I can see that they were, but even Art Bell said, well, everything you just said doesn't make me think that they're enemies, because he started talking about them coming up and, deflecting a missile. Well, I mean, if our government's shooting a missile at a UFO, you know what I mean, or them, they got to take, evasive maneuvers, right? They got to defend themselves.
Absolutely.
And they also were going to places like, even in Russia, where they were changing missiles and shutting down. He mentions at one point, a base in Russia, all of the bolts and beams fell to the ground from the UFO within a minute and technically crumbled to the ground. I thought that was very, very interesting.
Well, he starts to say at the end too about how these creatures are just forms of energy. And when you think about it, I mean, that's what
they're biological, but yes, in a way, a form of electromagnetism.
That was it. I'm sorry, electromagnetism.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of perhaps what we are missing in this world is that electromagnetism type of thing, where we can alter the course of missiles, the idea of shutting electronics down, building the Coral Castle. There's something about that element that we're just not understanding quite yet.
Oh yeah, no, I think some people do. I mean, we have psychics, we have mediums, the real ones, people who are in touch with uh, their inner self, so to speak, and can do things that the majority of the population can't, like astral travel, see things that most people don't see, like, you know, I see ghosts, you know, I see dead people.
Mhm.
You know, there's something with the clones, these alien grays that become one with the ship, and it all deals with magnetism, and they control the ship that way. And through the four lobes of their brain, there's an intelligence behind that also, which we have no idea. I mean, you know, we just have no idea. But we as humans just haven't made it to that point to, as a whole, you know, figure that out. And, you know, we know that once our bare feet touch the earth, uh, you know, we're fit. If you stand out and walk long enough with bare feet, you will start to feel the energy of the earth, because there is a frequency to the earth, and it's almost healing to the point as it flows through your body. We wear shoes, boots, all these clothing, you know, I mean, we have to, right? But um, it's just very interesting. I just don't think we've really connected with all of that yet. But
I agree, but I remember you doing some of your empath healing stuff, and
yeah,
it is really drawing the energy from the earth type of thing.
yeah, oh yes, I think if enough people can focus their energy at one time on a certain purpose, that uh, they can make things happen. But you know, I was mainly talking about the alien grays, the vessel with intelligence and controlling the ship. Since you brought up the electromagnetism, but anyways, yeah, where else? And I don't even want to touch on the secret war that he talked about, because
Likewise.
it was just too depressing. The fact that, yeah, I won't even go into it. Just look it up, I guess, or whatever. It's not relevant to this. Let's get to the filing cabinet, maybe. I don't know.
I almost want to ask
Go ahead.
the end story. What do you think happened to the elements that were still in the file cabinet when Corso retired? Because Corso sounds like this incredible human being where it's just like, hey, I waited for decades before I came out because I told Trudeau I would.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he retires, shortly thereafter, he's like, everything that was there got left there. I mean, Bob Lazar would have been filling his pockets with, with that material. But Corso's like, hey, I'm done. This is not my stuff. This is the Army's material. And I always kind of wonder, like, where's that file cabinet now? Is it the Pentagon? Is it at Wright-Patterson?
Yeah.
Is it, somewhere?
Oh yeah, exactly, Red. Yes, it's called grounding, and it could be a very good healing process for a lot of people going through a lot of things. But anyways, I believe, Dave, that Philip J. Corso was such a military-minded man, and you can hear that in his voice, and he lived it from the moment he got out of high school, you know what I mean, until he retired, you know. And I think the majority of what was in there that needed to be sent out and back engineered and worked on, and things we got from that, from, you know, fiber optics to other things we'll talk about, computers, you name it. Wait till we talk about the spider web thing, string. Oh my gosh. But I think he took what he needed to take and sent it off to who he needed to. And I think what was left there probably wasn't as important as the stuff he already got out, really. But who am I? I don't know. He really never mentioned what else is in there, but I think he was the kind of guy who, once he left, he passed it on to the next guy who needed to start working on it. Because think about it. It's still going on, Dave. This past year, we had four. I don't know if you remember this. CNN was talking about it. Fox News, all of them. Not that we believe anything they say, but listen, it was all over. Military jets were scrambling And within a period of, I think, 4 weeks and really a week, we had 3 UFO sightings, and there were crashes and military going out to retrieve them. And this was on our news. Okay. So I think stuff is still being found, still being back engineered. Listen, Dave, we're at the point right now with AI, chips, computers, everything. We're on this cusp of what we've back engineered, I think. And because I think all of our great achievements and what's going on since the 1980s, I think really has been because of a lot of this alien technology that has been recovered.
I remember years ago, early 2000s, and I was really into researching companies to invest in that are going to take us to the next level, right?
Yeah.
And one of the people on a finance show I was listening to said basically, look, he goes, we are headed toward Star Trek. That's where we're headed, with all of the incredible amounts of
we can be.
Yeah, the incredible amounts of, increased chip speed. And, back then we didn't even have like the smartphone really, but it was just like, we're able to make all these processors smaller, more powerful. And, we're just headed in that one direction.
Well, let me just say that we are in, listen, all of my years on this planet already. Okay. And everything I know of history in the past, I think right now we are sitting at the precipice of something that could be bad or could be something that propels us into what we really want out of living on this planet, like going further and like you said, reaching for the stars, or finding out a portal exists and going from one place to another universe like this, in a vessel, Captain, in a vessel. Because the most unbelievable thing going on right now is the AI, the artificial intelligence, and the framework behind that, which boggles my mind. I'm no scientist, but the advances and the leaps and bounds that it's learning at is the scary part, but is also the part that I think could get us to that next level. As Michio Kaku talks about, I don't know if we're at 1 yet. I forget. I have to go back and listen, but we're definitely not at 2. And this could propel us up to that next level of civilizations. So yeah, I think these are very, very interesting times. And I think within the next decade, this world is going to transform, but it's only if we can get past, I hate to say all this stuff, but I mean, if we can get past the world issues going on when it comes to politics and stuff like that, which I really don't like to talk about, but if we can get past that and the wars that are going on right now, and the hatred, the racism, the all of that stuff, if we can just get past it, I think there's good stuff out there that is going to happen. But there's 2 roads that are going 2 different directions right now for the future in the next decade. When I'm, approaching, my late 60s or something like that, we'll talk again, hopefully, and we can see where we're at. But, listen,
we can still be doing our Sunday shows.
We'll see, right? But that's what I got to say about that. Let's get to the filing cabinet, Dave. Unless you got something to say.
I did, and I had it about a second ago, and now it's gone.
Sorry. If it comes back, just let me know. The filing cabinet. I loved how he talked about the metal piece, which was the same thing Jesse Marcel talked about.
Well, it's the same thing Bob Lazar talked about too.
Yes, the metal that you can't crinkle, bend, rip, do anything with, and it's very thin. You remember?
Well, you know what it was labeled as?
Oh.
Art parts.
Yeah, Art Bell, Art's Parts, look it up. You can look it up. It'll definitely let you know what we're talking about. But yeah, if it's listen, I don't know, Dave. Art Bell had so many things, and he just left it. He just left it.
I know.
One of the things that listen, I love the guy. I
Yes.
love the history of Coast to Coast AM and everything he talked about, guests he had on, people he interviewed. But I hate, and if I see him one day in the next life or ever, I'm gonna say, listen, dude, you even talked on your show about, Houdini said he'd come back one way or another. He'd let us know. And what do we get from you, Art? Everything left behind. We could know about Bigfoot possibly right now if what he said was true. The UFO controversy could be, so many things, Dave, and it pisses me off.
I know it does.
But listen, it is what it is.
All right. So I remember what I was going to say.
Okay.
And how we were talking about the advancement of technology.
Yes.
And it's so cool to think that just maybe 6 generations ago, our grandfather's grandfather rode a horse. That's all that they had, you know? And it was just like, how do you get from here to here quicker? Well, you need a quicker horse, and now all of a sudden, I mean, people are going up to space for fun, in a lot of these, multi-millionaire billionaires,
well,
spaceships.
Let's think about that too real quick. But I know I get what you're saying. We technically don't go to space, Dave.
Okay.
We go to the higher atmosphere, and that's where our satellites and everything else is. We don't break that barrier really, unless it's the Voyager and these other things that we've sent to fly across the solar system.
All right. And since it is top of the hour, we should probably take a moment to call on our sponsors. And since we don't have any, why don't you go ahead and
67 thumbs up. Come on, people.
67.
Give us some thumbs up. If you're in here and you haven't hit the thumbs up button and you're enjoying the discussion in the shows, give us a thumbs up. We always like to hit 100. You may be just interested in the conversation we're having, but still would like to get 100 thumbs up before the bottom of the hour, and definitely leave a comment below after the show. It's so hard to get on live shows comments, but I get it. I understand. But if you remember, please do.
Yeah. And so I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know as well what we're going to be covering shortly.
A lot of shows coming up. Yep.
A lot of fun shows. And thank you so much for doing the thumbnails for those.
You're welcome.
The next episode where you're going to see Dino and myself next Sunday, we're going to be talking about Kolchak, episode 17. That means only 3 more after this. The Legacy of Terror. And I'm excited to watch it because I thought the last 2 episodes were pretty good. And I hope this one is too.
Me too. Yeah.
After that, The Prisoner, episode 3.
A, B, and C.
I can't wait because I
can't wait.
I can imagine 1, 2, and 3. But now are we dealing with a separate, facility that has letters instead of numbers? Wait and find out. 2 weeks today.
I'm enjoying The Prisoner, but yeah, Dave's still on the fence. But
hey, no, I'm on the fence. I'm on the other side.
Okay, go on.
3 weeks. We're going to be discussing Murdered by Death with Sean and Steve. I'll send them a reminder later today that they're going to be on. But we're going to be doing a walkthrough of Murdered by Death. I can't wait. And then a month from today, and we're in October, so the first thing we're doing is Murdered by Death. The second thing is Dino and I are having a top 10 movies for Halloween.
Yes, that is going to be fun, Dave. We will be talking.
Cannot wait.
Yes, listen, October is going to be Halloween month, and we're going to be talking a lot of spooky stuff and horror related stuff and all that good. Yeah. And by the way, didn't have a Midday Macabre stream today because it's me and Dave's night to talk. So Sundays you won't get that. But I'm trying to get a midday stream about 3 hours long of some spooky stories up until Halloween if I can. So anything else there, Dave? Listen, I know we got other stuff, but
you had a new episode of something you did.
I don't know.
Okay.
We got a top 10 list. Oh, you just said that top 10 movies for Halloween. Listen,
No,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, you had an individual story set aside, so I'm sorry, I don't remember what that was.
It's okay. Yeah, no, don't worry. I don't even remember what it is either. Thank you, Connie. Appreciate that. Good to see you, Amanda Panda. So yeah, let's get back to the filing cabinet then, Dave. Please hit that thumbs up, everybody. Got to get to 100.
And the first thing that we got in, so the whole big thing about Corso is that he's hired to take this material and to bring it into industry, figure out what it can be used for, figuring out as well what companies are going to do best with this material, which would have been a really weird phone call to make, I think, going, hey, I got something you need, to like the president of, who knows, ConocoPhillips. And one of the things that they came up with was this, was the night viewing goggles. And I thought that was really kind of cool. And it was
infrared.
Yes. And it was based on the idea that these beings that they got from
the autopsy report.
Yes. And they had a third eyelid that was collecting light.
Yes, exactly. The third eyelid came down, created a sort of infrared viewing for these creatures so that they can see at night. This was down in the autopsy report and the other stuff that they gathered from all of this. So that is one thing that came out of that. Yeah, and I thought that was really, really interesting, Dave. I mean, to get infrared off of a biological being, and I would have loved to seen how that eyelid worked to actually do that. I mean, so intriguing, so interesting. I also thought the thread-like material, it was just like a thread that they got.
Similar to how you had mentioned the metal was strong, and the idea that the atoms within the metal were in a straight line.
Oh yeah, the one thing with all of these objects were the atoms were all aligned, which doesn't happen on our planet. Doesn't happen. So all the atoms were aligned. I think what they were getting to, it's what gave it its strength, its durability, and all of that good stuff. So
paper and radiation could not pass through,
which also lends to how thin the material was and it being used for either the ship or whatnot. I thought it was very interesting. But the thread, he also said it was like spider webs.
Yes.
Which, okay, I take that back then. I do believe, did he not say that the spider web, the atoms in the spider web are aligned as well?
Yes, he did.
So my goof. I thought that it couldn't happen on Earth, but yes, the spider web, same thing. And you could stretch it. I forget how long he said. I mean, it's one of the most powerful materials on Earth, and they can't, to this day, they can't replicate spider webs.
Spider webs are fascinating, and it drives me crazy when I walk through one and I can't get it off. It drives me crazy. But
right.
They're so incredibly strong and just fascinating.
Oh yeah,
these are made.
Oh yeah, listen, spider webs. And again, if they could, I think what he said was they took when they were trying to back engineer, the one thing that they did was kind of like a vest, like a bulletproof type vest, but they really just could not get that down, at least at the point. Listen, I haven't heard anything to this day but he said at that point in this show that they just could not back engineer that to the point that they of the original. So anyways,
Well, the thing is too, I mean, this is still, I mean, it's scary to think that this is 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And who knows what we've been able to do since then as far as our technology has improved. And sometimes you just need to shut the file cabinet door and come back to it in a couple of years when we do have that information.
Yeah. Which, by the way, he also brung out of there. He said there were a grouping of wires, and these wires would light up with different color. And it's what he introduced to get back engineered. And that is where we got our fiber optics from, he said. So another very important thing, especially for communication and listen, our internet and everything. I mean, fiber optics are, boy, I love it. The internet is just so fast. I told you many times, Dave, you need fiber optics in there.
I always do. And hello, Gigi. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
One thing that I thought was very, I don't know if respectful is the right word, but they tried to create, when they introduced this material, is they tried to make it look like it was part of the linear development that we were headed toward anyway. Even though it wasn't, even though we had that little jump of technology, that they tried to do it at least in a way that it wasn't like, totally mind-blowing. That when they took this to private industry, and letting private industry have the patents. But Art Bell also brought up the fact that, hey, wait a minute, what about all these individuals who have won like Nobel Prizes for like science and things like that? Did they truthfully win them, or was this something that they utilized kind of a gift from the government with a new technology instead?
Yeah. I mean, listen, he said once it's out there, it was up to them to, and he said they told them, listen, patent these things, I think just really just to get our country, doing the best that they possibly could do. I mean, listen, they did not care. So,
and the budget was like crazy big for him to operate. I mean, it was one of those.
Well, yeah, he said he gave $2 billion to one of the
$2 billion.
Yeah.
And this was one of the things I actually think maybe the government actually did correctly, where they funded everything correctly. They had the right people in the right places. They disseminated the material correctly, and it really kind of basically worked for them, as well as everyone erasing the paper trail back to Philip J. Corso.
Exactly. 74 thumbs up. Let's go, you guys. Hit that thumbs up button. And yes, this is Paranormal GG. We do this Art Bell show, Remembering Art Bell, and Talk Paranormal once a month at least. And he said we also got I think he said the scariest thing that was in the filing cabinet was the chip, the chip, which ended up going into computers, and that's where all that came from. But they weren't sure electromagnetism wise and all this other stuff which he said was coming from it or whatever. I don't know. The chip was the scariest, he said, but he said I mean, it's become one of the biggest things to come out of there, really. And he also said the heart pump.
I was just looking at my notes for that. We did make the first heart pump from that. I had a note also that there were a total of 12 items in the file cabinet. And Art asked him a really good question. He goes, do you think others were given items as well? Or were you the only one who got them?
Yeah, he didn't answer, did he?
He couldn't.
Yeah.
But he said he knew that, like, especially Germany doing parallel work.
Oh, listen, other countries were definitely. I think every country, not every country. There's a lot of countries on the planet, but listen, a lot of other countries were doing the same thing. Like I said, I mean, the lore is there, and I don't think it's there just for no reason. Germany rising up as quickly as they did during the 30s and the 40s there, Dave. There were, ideas of a crashed UFO that they had scientists working on and back engineering. And I think Philip J. Corso even talked about, a lot of these scientists that they brought over from Operation Paperclip, talked about a lot of this stuff. They said, yes, this is definitely going on over there. So, this, think about it. Any country that something like this happens in, I mean, Russia, definitely I mean, they've got some of the biggest, they got, am I wrong, Dave? They got the most land on the planet. Am I wrong?
They've got a lot of land.
Between Russia. Well, now that all those European countries kind of.
Even before that, I mean, they've got so much. I don't know how much is usable.
Right. I mean, you got
the tundra,
The tundra, right. But something comes into the radar and it crashes, the land is there,
Well, is
but
that where we had the Tunguska effect or something like that, where
incident. Yeah, well, I mean, who knows what that was, because people say it was an asteroid that exploded above that area, but we don't know. We really don't know. But yeah, there's UFO crashes all over the planet, and
probably some Bigfoot up there too.
Believe it or not, yeah, some big feats. But yeah, no, listen. Of course it is. I think Philip J. Corso said some of the back engineering that came out of France, brought us the first helicopter, which was interesting. As I remember, hieroglyphs on cave walls with objects looking like a helicopter in shape. So interesting stuff.
Da Vinci's notebooks. We see the helicopter.
Yeah. Yep. So so who knows? I don't know. Lots of research goes into writing science fiction, says Gigi. Yeah. Chris, I've been a spider size of softball. Holy Moses. Holy, whoa, what the? Anyways, Dave, I thought this was just this is one of the shows that Art Bell, you'll never forget this one. This is up there. I think this is a top 10 for sure. A lot of stuff came out of it. It was very interesting. How about you?
I loved it as well. And it was such a lot of these shows that are kind of famous, you only have maybe an hour with a guest. And this guy, even though he's like 82 years old,
he gave three,
stayed on for 2.5 hours. Yeah. And it was really great to hear. And it is also, I'm so happy this happened. 10 months later, he's going to pass away.
Right.
And it's one of those things that, as Chris W. says, Bigfoot is real. We never heard the end of, the Bigfoot stories or the Ouija board stories or Art's parts, but we did get the full episode of Roswell. And he made a kind of a very poignant quote at the end of the episode where Philip J. Corso says, I wrote this because my grandkids were asking me what I did during the war. And I think I would have been just amazed if my grandfather had said, well, I was at Roswell. I back into the project. I did all these things. And again, we don't have any major debunkers of this. The government's not coming out and saying, you don't know Philip J. Corso. Right. He's still like, an American hero.
Oh, yeah. No, I think so. I think for the people who are in the paranormal bubble and interested in these kind of things.
And I will say, when I become a ghost one day,
Yeah.
I will be near you at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base because I would love to go through all the rooms and just not be detected. I can't even imagine what they have had or what maybe they still do have there.
Listen, again, if I were able to stick around, we have no idea, and just roam the earth for a while, you know what I mean? I would love that, undetected, and just, yeah. Listen, that would be awesome. But anyways, I would love to do the Philadelphia experiment soon too. That would be, that's a really interesting story with a lot of interesting things to talk about. That's you're talking time travel and the way time and space coexist, and there's a lot of interesting things we could talk about on a show like that too. So Bigfoot, listen, how about this, you guys? When it comes to Bigfoot, do this. Everybody goes, well, you know what, how can a Bigfoot go undetected and all this other stuff? Not just the fact that, you know, look at the Appalachians, look at the Pacific Northwest. Do you know how much forested area the Rocky Mountains are still all the way up into Canada and Alaska, all, and comes down through the United States still, Dave?
Mhm.
So much land, 100% things can go undetected. Even something the size of a Bigfoot traveling in, I just want everybody to go look at a map in, what was it, 1875 or 1845, somewhere around there, when the settlers started to come in. Look at the map of like Manhattan and the New England. We had forests. We could climb trees from the East Coast to the, West Coast. It was totally covered with trees. I mean, it was just the entire way. The whole country was, even Arizona and all that. I mean, the climate was totally different to where the forested lands was unbelievable, Dave. It was all covered, and we came in and we chopped it all down. So, which within a short period of time, 150 years, whatever, 200 years, let's say, whatever, okay, we started to push these creatures a lot, which probably became extinct. But some of the bigger ones that maybe are a little bit smarter, like a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, stuff like that, have maintained their areas, like the ones in, Skunk Ape in Florida, and the big Sasquatch stuff you get up in the Pacific Northwest and all that. Even here in Ohio, Ape Man.
Isn't there also New Jersey?
Oh, listen, they're everywhere you can possibly think of, Dave, and they've all got different names just because of the areas and stuff, but they're all the same thing to a point. People don't know that Texas has got one of the biggest forested areas in the country. People think of Texas as being dry, desert area. No, that eastern side is like so thick. They call it the thicket. The the thicket. No, I forget exactly what they call that area over there. But it's something like that. And
I'm sorry, this is the area nearer Louisiana.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's basically half of Texas. People don't even think of that to look on the map and go, "Oh yeah, look at that." I mean, it's almost the size of the Appalachians up through New England. It's a big portion of forested land, and I mean deep thicket forested land that is like humid and swampy, and you're not going in there. You know what I mean? So who's to know? So it just makes you think. That's all. There are so many things out there that we have no idea of when it comes to cryptids, and people think it is like, no way. But we live in cities, we live in towns, we live in villages. Drive an hour out of your city where it's just woods and stuff like that, and look around. You know what I mean, Dave?
Even 20 minutes.
Right.
I mean, it's scary sometimes how far removed. If you drove for an hour, it's just like I'm way up in the mountains and stuff like that going, I'm a little scared because no one is built here. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
if my
Yep.
car broke down, who's going to find me? You know, I mean, it is some scary stuff.
Yeah. Yepper. Okay. Anyways, we are at the bottom of the hour.
We had some great UFO, or I'm sorry, great Bigfoot people on your Paranormal Into the Night.
Yes. Listen, I think maybe I'll throw up the playlist of Paranormal Into the Night soon, but on the community board. But if you can if you do just do a search of Paranormal Into the Night on YouTube, and they'll all come up. Over 7 years, I've had a lot of really interesting guests. So, and I'm talking to people. One of them is a Bigfoot researcher who talks about, let me get this. I just emailed and messaged this person. Let me find it because it's so.
It's probably right under the Ed Dames email.
Okay, so he's going to be coming on. It's called. He's got a book out called The Xanu, Xanue. Although the Xanu have been on Earth for approximately 65 million years since the last period of dinosaurs, it's very interesting stuff. It's basically a Bigfoot book. They're talking about Bigfoot type creatures, and I've never heard this name before given. So Bigfoot forest people, befriending the Bigfoot forest people. I've talked of Edie Kaido before, the gifting and the feeding of the Bigfoot, and decades of work with she did with them. But anyways, lots of good stuff coming up here soon. That's about it, Dave.
All right.
It's getting dark where you're at. Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah.
The sun is going down. Well,
And
it's
I'm
going
ready
down
for some
here
coffee.
too. Oh, it's dark outside here. Yeah.
It's 9:30 there.
9:30. It's dark outside. Okay. So, yep. Until next week, right, Dave?
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Something going on?